Rockhopper here, and today I'm going to show you a town that was drowned by Lake Mead but is now re-emerged. We're heading toward the town of St. Thomas, or what was the town of St. Thomas, in Nevada, in the Lake Mead National Recreation Area, and it was underwater for a long time since the mid-1930s. But because of the drought out west, it has now been exposed, so we can see it, or what's left of it anyway. It's a 2.5-mile hike from the parking lot to the main set of ruins, so a 5-mile round trip. Hopefully I can get some footage in before it gets super windy. Supposed to be about 40, maybe even 50-mile-an-hour winds today, and yesterday it was 35 to 40. Pretty much all day long. This wind has been relentless lately. For the past 14 out of 15 days, it's been very windy, and I mean not just breezy. I mean really windy, like 30 miles an hour on up, with gusts of even 50 miles an hour or more. And that's the way it's been in southern Nevada. And that wind's been pretty draining. It just kind of tires me out. Lake Mead is the largest reservoir in the United States, and recently, due to 22 years of drought and the demand that 25 million people are putting on its water, it has shrunk to less than a third of its capacity and is heading toward 25%. Because of this, Lake Mead has revealed not only a ghost town, but also numerous sunken boats and lately, dead bodies. I'll tell you more about that in just a bit. Watch out for snakes on the trail. Remember, take nothing and leave everything as you see it. Tracks in the sand. Could these be from a kangaroo rat? It's only 8 in the morning and the wind is already blowing about 20 miles an hour. The town was once submerged beneath 70 feet of water, as evidenced by the numerous freshwater clamshells. It didn't take long to reach the first ruins. They're only about a half-mile from the parking lot, and beyond it is the next ruin, likely someone's house. The town of St. Thomas was created in 1865 when Thomas Smith and nearly a dozen Mormon men and women began a settlement here. At first, eking out a life in the harsh desert climate was difficult, but the tenacious will of the settlers eventually led them to a prosperous life. I believe this was the Gentry home. The Gentrys were an influential family who ran a 14-room hotel where governors, senators, and even President Calvin Coolidge once stayed. And this is where the Gentry Hotel once stood. This is where the general store once was. This is all that's left of what was the general store. And this is what's right next to the general store. By 1866, 45 families built homes and planted crops here in the Muddy River Valley. Cotton, wheat, grapes, melons, and fruit trees led to abundant harvests. Many people planted vegetable gardens. Streets and avenues were eventually lined with tall shade trees that were watered by irrigation ditches. Wells were dug out here for water, and if we look inside this one, we can see that someone named Mary wrote her name in the concrete on May 26, 1911. Let's take a peek down into another well. It doesn't look like there's anything down there. This is what remains of the schoolhouse. This is how the school once looked. It was a large school with a sizable amount of children attending it. Here's what's left of a porcelain pot. Beyond the school are these ruins. Though farming and ranching were the main occupations, for a few decades, copper, silver, gold, salt, and sand were mined, adding to the prosperity of the region. Nearby is a foundation of what may have been a house, but could have been a business. This was the blacksmith shop. This was the Hanig store, and it stands out because it's the tallest ruin in St. Thomas. Reinhold and Celinda Hanig built a grocery store and soda fountain. It was also known as the Hanig Ice Cream Parlor. There was another grocery down the street and a cafe as well. State boundaries at the time were not always well defined. The settlers thought they were in the Arizona-Utah territory, but were in fact in Nevada. Nevada officials demanded 5 years back taxes, but rather than pay, the Mormons burned their homes and moved to other settlements in Utah. The houses of St. Thomas never had indoor plumbing or electricity. In the 1880s, a new wave of settlers arrived. These must have been some pretty nice houses for back in the day. It looks like they put a lot of effort into building them, as if they had every intention of living here for the rest of their lives. Amidst the ruins, if you look closely, you might find pieces and relics of the past. Such as this piece of glass, tinged purple by long-term sun exposure. An old tin of Norwegian sardines. The town's population peaked at about 500 residents when Calvin Coolidge signed a bill in 1928 authorizing the construction of what was then called Boulder Dam. The residents would have to relocate, and the government would reimburse them for their property. One of the last holdouts was Hugh Lord, who, with water lapping at his door in June of 1938, lit his house on fire and rowed a boat away. Before the water of Lake Mead inundated and drowned the town of St. Thomas, the graves were moved a few miles down the road to a different cemetery. And that's where I discovered this old car beside the road, dating back to about the late 1930s. As you wander among the remnants of this once thriving town, take a moment to ponder what life was like here. Lush green fields and orchards, horses and mules pulling farm implements, children laughing in the streets as they played, leaves on tall trees rustling in the wind. Imagine this lush green oasis in a dry, dusty desert. Not only are the receding water levels of Lake Mead exposing sunken boats, but also something much more gruesome.
Antonio, come here.
Yeah, boss?
I got a job for you.
What do you want me to do, boss?
It's time to say goodbye to Mr. Scarducci. I want you to put a bullet through him, stuff him in a barrel, and let him sleep with the fishes. Capiche?
Whatever you say, boss.
Well, this is right out of a mob movie. Human remains have just been discovered along the shoreline of Lake Mead.
It was a Sunday afternoon not far from the launch ramp here at Hemingway Harbor. As the lake levels drop, a decaying barrel emerged out of the water. Inside it, human remains. One witness described to us still seeing the pants and a shirt on the person's body with a belt around their waist. 40 years ago, where this barrel sits was roughly 100 feet underwater and several hundred yards from shore. And investigators say they know exactly how the crime was committed.
Someone had to have a boat, and someone had to, put someone in the barrel and push them off the boat.
The Clark County coroner determined the man died by gunshot wound. And his shoes lead detectives to believe the murder took place in the late 70s or early 80s.
I think it has the signature of a mob hit.
Because of the injuries that the victim received, we are confident it's a homicide investigation.
With the lowering lake levels, police believe that more bodies will be found. And less than 2 weeks after the body in the barrel discovery, north of Hemingway Harbor over at Colville Bay, another set of human remains was found. But police have determined there was no foul play involved in that death.
And these ones are suspected to be from bodies of boaters who had drowned. As for those 50-mile-an-hour winds, yeah, they arrived. I hope you enjoyed exploring the lost and found town of St. Thomas with me. Don't forget to give me a like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Rockhopper. I'll see ya.